So people keep asking me, there's been Chronicles of Elyria updates. When are you going to go over them? And it's a really difficult one because if you've took the time, which I guarantee almost nobody watching this video has, to go and look at these updates, Caspian has somehow managed to make even my content that just has a good time and laughs about what's going on and asks silly questions and talks about the past of Chronicles of Elyria just impossible to be fun. Because these updates it's basically somebody going into the most detail about things that maybe 10% of people would be able to understand because they're programmers and they've made games before and things like that. And everyone else cannot glean anything from this whatsoever. It's just purely technical nonsense. And while maybe it makes sense, I can't make a fun video out of this, unfortunately. Because as you can see, it's just thousands of words of saying nothing, because no matter what, this doesn't make the game. The game's not out. It's not gonna be out, and there is no good content here. The only thing I can really even talk about is, what the conclusions are. So this is the update from March. So there's a few funny things in that he always says, in this blog, Caspian gets more technical than usual. Every one of these has been technical, but the fact that it's Caspian, the one-man band Caspian, saying, Caspian's getting technical here, just say me, or go back to using we. Just stop referring to yourself as Caspian. And then this new update, which is actually fairly interesting, he goes through, I lied, it's not interesting at all, but I'll try to make it interesting. He goes through and talks about their back-end engine, basically, and then shows a bunch of videos that mean nothing to almost anybody. Somebody with technical background will undoubtedly reply to this video and probably DM me and be like, oh, this and that, and if you're going to do that, just know I will probably read it and not reply, because there's nothing less interesting to me than Caspian, who took $8 million from people, has developed an MMO now for over 7 years, and he's still saying, oh yeah, this tech's amazing. It's not. Nobody cares. Deliver the game or just shut the fuck up. But obviously he's doing this as like a, he signs off every video. Pledge to the continued development of the Soulborn engine and the Chronicles of Elyria. And there is actually a tidbit of info here that might show as to why he's doing what he's doing. Obviously, most people think he's trying to avoid the lawsuit, dodge those lawyers by repeatedly just showing that he's working on this, spinning his wheels because everybody knows this is not going to amount to anything. But I did read this blog. I hated it, every minute of it. And I'm not going to subject you to it. But what he does say, I was about to say he has basically been going through and developing the engine so that it works agnostic to Unreal and Unity. So anybody can use it without licensing Unreal and Unity, which means, and he says this here, using a Unity Unreal viewer as part of our core development pipeline would force anyone using the Soulborn engine also to have a license to the chosen game engine. This way, we can license the engine without forcing other developers to use the same client and without us having to develop 2 different viewers for each possible license. So, bear in mind, of course, Jeremy didn't receive a singular penny from any source other than when he put PPP loans into the US government and said he was going to retain his employees and then fired them all and took like $500,000 off of the US government for that. And the $8 million that he took from the general public for crowdfunding. He said he was going to make an MMO. There is no MMO to finish, like you can't play it. Nobody ever got to play any of the MMO. He said then, of course, they were going to make this, RTS-style game, which would eventually build into the MMO. There's an alpha of that, but it's made in Unity, and it looks like something somebody put together in, a game jam week or weekend or whatever. But now, he's talking about licensing their engine that was built with your money, and he's putting the final touches on that so that they can begin selling the engine, basically, to people who would, for some reason, want to use an engine developed by somebody who took money from the public and didn't give them anything that they wanted. Now, this is common because we've gone through other crowdfunding projects that have done this. Camelot Unchained, for instance, is basically in a similar position, but you can actually play that game in beta, although not many people do because it's not good. And that one's been in development for almost as long as Star Citizen. Bring that one up and people are going to start moaning in the comments, but it's just true. It's been in development for a long time. And of course, with Camelot Unchained, the developers have done the same shit. So when I say they've done the same thing, Camelot Unchained took in a bunch of money from the public to develop an MMO, the spiritual successor to Dark Age of Camelot. And then recently, in statements released that were very targeted towards investors and not the general consumers, been talking about, oh, they've received a whole bunch of funding to finish the engine. And they basically talked way more about what they can do with the engine and licensing it further in the future. And even talking about how the engine would be really good for metaverse and stuff like that. And less about the MMO that obviously got them the funding and the public interest in the first place. So this is not new. It seems like the thing that everyone's deciding to do. If people give you money to make a game, why don't you just spend that money making an engine, and then you can sell that engine as the owner of it forever and potentially become very wealthy, and fuck those people who paid for you to make a game, basically. Which, of course, I'm not saying is exactly what he's saying or doing, but that's kind of how it shakes out at the end, right? If nobody gets the game that they originally backed and thought that they were going to get, and then he's talking about, as you can see here, we can license the engine without forcing other developers to use the same client and without us having to develop 2 different viewers for each possible license. Nobody wants this. I guess you could be charitable here and say this is a way for him to get the money to be able to develop the MMO. And obviously, looking at the Discord, you can see there are some people in here who are like, I see Caspian post an update, thumbs up. Is he having sex with my wife? Hopefully, good. I'm a cuckold. He did take all of our money and basically fucking piss it into the wind, but he said, you know, they're working on things. Amazing. Thumbs up. Is that you, Caspian? Can you keep it down? I'm trying to, you know, have a conversation on Discord with the other accounts and the other people who bought $10,000 packages in a game that doesn't exist. So I do understand to an extent that, you know, this could be a way they wind up building the MMO. But at the same time, if somebody gave you $8 million and you had a team and then you don't have a team and you have no money, if you couldn't finish the engine then, there's just so many question marks as to why were you not talking about licensing the engine then? And if you were, somebody link me to that, because I never saw it and I've done quite a lot of research, obviously not read every word he's ever said. But obviously at the time, wouldn't that have been a good thing to like parade in front of people and say, oh, by the way, our engine's really good, we can sell this to people? Because what I remember and understand is that they were using Spatial OS for their back end. And then like 2 years in, after spending millions of dollars trying to use this, they had to scrap it and rebuild it, which is where a lot of the money was wasted. So a lot of this doesn't make sense to me. And there are, of course, words thrown around here that essentially say like, oh, you know, we're getting close. But he's been saying this for like the last 9 months now of like, oh, you know, something's coming, something's near. So what's next? While the Aura system will take a little time to finish, my focus on the visualizer this month took up the time I was planning to complete the Aura system. I've no fucking clue what this means. So that'll have to be demonstrated in May, but it was worth it to allow you to visualize the functionality I've been working on and see the world from the server's point of view. Nobody's ever seen the world. Full stop. Nobody's seen the world. So from the server's point of view, why don't you let us see the world from our own point of view with our eyeballs? I've said this a million times, just please load up a live stream and show you playing the game. He's never done it. He's never done it. Just imagine your company is about to go bankrupt and you know your audience would give you more money if you could prove the game existed, and you just never show them the game. It just makes no sense to me unless he has nothing, or he's the world's most secretive man. Is he scared that if he shows it on a live stream, someone else is going to waste $8 million and not develop an MMO that looks kind of similar? I'm just so confused why you can't do this. Additionally, now that I've implemented a functional server-side spatial partitioning and physics system, it's time to incorporate that into the new MMO platform. What does this mean? I need to get a mesh of spatial partitioning services working together, distributed across multiple processors. To do that, for that, I first need to finish the service host and put a new server networking and message layer in place. Ideally, this will be demonstrated next month, with a visualizer showing support for entities and spatial partitions spread across multiple processors. My brain. I'm stupid, guys, because obviously some people like to comment, I don't know how to make a video game. And some people are probably reading this like, yeah, Caspian, that makes sense, mate. That's fantastic. Kira's an idiot. And I accept that. But even my monkey brain can understand this is saying a whole bunch of bullshit without showing anyone any substance whatsoever. I too could go on ChatGPT now and basically say, AI, please think for me and tell me in technical terms what somebody would want to hear if they knew technical terms about making an MMO. But that still doesn't do anything, does it? The majority of your customer base can't read this and make sense of it. They just want to see the game. So these are exciting times, apparently. Yeah, I'm super fucking stoked. While we've had visualizers in the past, this new one is significantly more performant, engine agnostic, and he's here to stay. Yeah, right, mate. So were you developing them other ones for the express purpose of not to stay then? That makes you look fantastic. Likewise, while we've had spatial partitioning and physics before, they were always client-side authoritative. Now we're finally entirely server-side authoritative. There's still more work, but the core platform is nearing completion, as is the core game engine. Says who? Show me. Says who? After that, it's just game mechanics and more game mechanics until next time. So I guess this is Caspian's way of saying all the people we hired to make this MMO were so fucking useless that I could just fire all of them, do all of their work on my own while fighting a legal case with no money, and deliver the MMO faster than what I did in the last 7 years with all those people. I say 7 years, I can't remember how long ago it is. It feels like I've wasted way too much of my life looking at this. But at the same time, I do feel some kind of obligation to talk about these updates, even though it is literally like, I was going to say milking my penis, but that's considerably easier than milking this for, 8 minutes worth of content. But there we go, coming very soon to you. Chronicles of Elyria, apparently it's going to be finished. The other game nobody gives a fuck about, apparently that's going to be finished. An engine that you'll be able to license out, because you'll definitely be doing that instead of using Unreal Engine or Unity. You'll want to use the Soulborn engine and have Caspian be your God Emperor. Of course you will. I'm sure these are all things that are definitely going to happen. Definitely going to do it with no money. And I just can't wait for the day where I wake up and, there's a new MMO being built by an indie team using Soulborn engine. Just cannot wait. But there we go. Thanks for watching. Don't comment about Chronicles of Elyria anymore. It's dead. There's nothing. Unless we can convince Caspian to get back on video and start talking to us and showing us stuff again, I can't. There's almost nothing I can say about this anymore if you've watched the other videos. So, yeah, see you next time. Peace out.